If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members. Unlimited defense budgets, unmatched legal expertise. Carry the same level of support police officers have. Carry CCW Safe, the highest caliber.
And we're back. Got my partner in crime tonight, Jeff MD, with me.
We're back. One of the sports fans.
Partner in crime tonight, Jeff MD. You got to give me 2 seconds here. I seem to be having an audio issue happening.
It sure is not on my end. No, I'm doing that.
Seem to be having all right. Okay, sorry. I've got so many computers and screens and cameras going on today, and I changed a bunch of stuff around. And of course, just before we go live, everything lost its mind. So anyway, all right, we're going to jump right into this tonight, Jeff. And the main topic of the night is the wildfires that are out of control in California. Pretty crazy stuff. So let me pull up this first article here. There was definitely no shortage of content on this particular subject. All right. So at the latest count, there's 5 simultaneous wildfires, golly, across the Los Angeles area so far. And I've been refreshing this page. So far, there's 1,000 structures, meaning homes and retail buildings, that have been burned up as a result of this. And so you can see this was just updated half an hour ago, Pacific time. There's a map. I don't know if you've seen this or not, Jeff, but this is pretty crazy. There's a live 3D map that should come up here in a second. Not sure why it's not coming up automatically like it was before. Let me refresh it and see if it'll come up. There we go. All right. So this actually shows where the fires are burning, where the evac orders are. And this is a massive amount of acreage and very heavily populated as well. So before we started, Jeff, we were discussing the LA Fire Department. They embraced DEI. Everything that they've been doing is for alphabet causes, one way or the other. They've given away fire trucks to Ukraine, and now the fire hydrants have no water in them. Did you catch that, Jeff?
Yeah, and I saw something, and it makes sense. You got water service to your house. Your house burns down. Those pipes are still charged, so that's just going to leak all over the place. And you burn 1,000 houses. It's like cutting the water mains or the water line to 1,000 houses and having it wide open. You're going to lose all your hydro pressure.
Yeah, it seems like pretty extreme mismanagement, if you ask me. For those of you who'd like to get the entire articles or videos that we put up, you can go to patreon.com/survivaldispatch, sign up for free, and you can download all of this so you can get all the links and the full length videos. So this is the type of content, by the way, that the fire chief has been posting since she was appointed. This is as recent as November 1st, by the way. What a day to celebrate the tremendous achievement of our gritty and determined Dodgers with the city of Los Angeles, working together to ensure your safety. And they seem to have fallen short on that particular goal. Let me bring up the next one here. So the mayor of Los Angeles shares some blame here as well. And as you pointed out before we jumped online here, Jeff, this is the second largest budget item that she cut. Almost 20 million she cut out of the fire department's budget. And here we are with thousands of homes have burned down, thousands of people are under evac orders. I mean, just to give people a sense of how big the fires are, check out this short video. So, by the way, Jeff, I'd like to point out that according to Governor Newsom, there is no debate over climate change and global warming, that this is a direct result of those problems.
Nothing to do with climate change. Zero. California has, especially Southern California, has always been prone to wildfires since before the white man showed up. They were, I think the Indian name for it was like smoking hills because they caught on fire all the time. What the settlers did back in the 1800s, they realized this, and they would clear the brush. They would set backfires in the wet season. They would clear out the underbrush. They would do preventative fires. They had fire breaks cut out. So when the fires came in this time of year, when it's hot and dry with a lot of wind, it had no fuel and had nowhere to go. But because of the environmental whack jobs, they say, oh my God, you're going to destroy the environment if you clean out the underbrush. You can't do that. Well, then you have these huge raging fires. And what the hell do you think happens to the underbrush and the critters and the habitats? They get burnt to the ground. If I'm a squirrel or a rabbit, I would rather have a partially denuded forest floor than one that is ash. You're on mute. You're on. Yeah. You there? I can't hear you. Well, we'll wait for Chris to figure out his audio problems. But this is 100% preventable and 0% global warming.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we got you.
And so, like I said, I had everything disassembled in here today, trying to move cameras around. I mean, this is a brand new MacBook Pro, which costs an egregious amount of money. And I've had nothing but low resolution issues with the webcam. So I bought some other external cameras. And like I said, I rewired everything today. And it seems like self-inflicted wounds. Anyways, we'll get back on track here. So what I was trying to say there, Jeff, before my mic went muted, was that I think there's an important distinction that Newsom and these other, I don't know what you want to call them, climate activists, climate doomsday guys, whatever, is they typically say, well, before mankind, the forests just maintain themselves and we need to get back to nature and let it just maintain itself. But the big difference is that you now have millions of people occupying these areas, and you can't treat it the way it was when it was unoccupied land. They just don't seem to make that connection at all. Even Trump in his first tenure was in California after they had wildfires and made a point of saying, you guys need to clean up the underbrush. You need to clean up the forest floor where you have high urban density. And clearly they did not do that. But it's all climate change anyway at the end of the day, right? So let me pull up the next one here. I briefly touched on it. So LA firefighters have no water to battle blaze destroying city as hydrants left empty. According to reports out of Los Angeles, California, first responders are struggling to put out fires because depleted water reservoirs have left hydrants empty as nearly 3,000 acres have burned in the massive Palisades Inferno. Now, this is from earlier today. It's not 3,000 acres. It's beyond that now. But let's have a quick look at this video.
For, covering us so well. Listen, it's a disaster to the 100th degree. It's beyond anything I think any of us could have ever imagined. But my heart goes out, obviously, to the people with their homes, and I'm watching the small businesses around us go up in flames. This is people's livelihoods, so it's devastating. But what is most concerning to me is our first responders and our firefighters who are trying to battle this. There's no water in the Palisades. There's no water coming out of the fire hydrants. This is an absolute mismanagement by the city. It's not the firefighters' fault, but it's by the city. And I'm going to be very honest. We've got a mayor that's out of the country, and we've got a city that's burning, and there's no resources to put out fires. So if you look at your pictures, you don't see the firefighters there because there's nothing they can do. And it looks like we're in a third world country here.
So Jeff, comments on
Yeah,
not having water for their fire hydrants.
some of this is a red herring. I mean, as I explained before we went live, when a house burns down, nobody goes out and turns the water off at the curb. Okay, it burns down. And that means all those water lines, think of your own house. If your roof collapsed, the house burned down, what about all the lines to your bathtub, your refrigerator, or, your sink? Well, those lines break, but they're charged, so they're just going to spew water. And now multiply that by 1,000. That's a lot of water that's just pouring out onto the ground. And unless the only way you can stop that is either go to each individual house and turn off the service to it, which you can't do in the middle of a wildfire, or you cut off water to entire sections where you can go to the main and shut it off. But then all those fire hydrants in that section, they won't work either because you've turned the water off to them as well. The issue isn't a lack of water. The issue is too many houses have already burned, and so too much water is leaking out onto the ground and is not available. They can't keep the system pressurized enough to pump water. The issue here isn't the water mains. It's not the availability of water so much as it is the gross mismanagement of the brush, the forest, the hillsides, the countryside, which led to it in the first place. These fires should never have been allowed to get this big, but it was destined to happen because they won't remove fuel from their wild areas. And that's the only way you can stop a wildfire is to starve it before it begins. And they won't do it because the whack job environmentalists think if you do that, you're eliminating habitat for squirrels and bunnies. Well, what the hell do you think these fires are doing?
Yeah, even worse.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of the depressurization scenario that you just brought up.
You can pump all the water you want into those mains, but if it leaks out faster than you can pump it in, because the mains are designed to handle the service of the houses on that section plus firefighting. But if all the houses, it'd be like everybody opening up every faucet, every garden hose, every sprinkler system, all at the same time. Meanwhile, the fire department is trying to draw 10,000 gallons to put out a fire. There's a limited amount of water you can cram down a pipe. And that's the issue here.
It's a great point, Jeff. I appreciate you bringing that up. This is interesting here as well. Countless reports of mass fire coverage cancellations by insurance company just weeks before the Los Angeles fires. This woman blasted the California government for their mismanagement and explained the fire coverage on her childhood home was just canceled after decades. And if this is the video I'm thinking it is, she didn't just grow up in this home. Her parents, who are still alive, have lived here, I want to say, for 75 years. It's a big number. We'll have a quick listen.
They're waving me down. Hi there. That's fine. You decided not to leave.
I know I'm not supposed to be here, but this is my parents' home.
I know the feeling.
And they just they got canceled from their fire insurance. So they're dealing with this. They're 90 years old. And through the state of California, because of this, they're 90 years old. They've lived in this house for 75 years, and they've had the same insurance, and these insurance people decided to cancel their fire. And we're going through this, and it just happened, and they have no fire insurance.
What do you make of that, Jeff? I mean,
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm not a big fan of insurance companies. Nobody likes insurance companies. But if I'm an insurance company and I write a policy on your house against fire, but the government says, okay, due to our policies, the chances of this house burning down went from 1% to 20%. Well, I'm going to say, well, then my risk goes up. I'm going to have to increase my rates. Oh, wait, you can't. This is a regulated industry. So their option is to either lose billions of dollars, which they're going to do because of this for the ones who still have it, or just not write policies anymore. It's just, this would be the equivalent if you've had 17 DUIs, and State Farm goes, I'm not going to write you an insurance policy on you and your car anymore because your risk is way too high because the government isn't taking your driver's license away. This is the government making it impossible for an insurance company to have any reasonable expectation of return on investment. They're exposed to billions and billions and billions of dollars of damages, but the government has failed in its responsibility to try and keep the fire risk to a minimum. State Farm cannot go into those hills and clean out the underbrush. They're not allowed to, even if they wanted to. That's the government's job. And to be honest, if I was in their shoes, I'd say, I'm not writing policies here. You're not doing anything, to have a reasonable expectation that I can write a policy and not have the house burned down 2 years later. And I may collect $1,000 in insurance premiums, but I got to fork out $1 million in claims. They're not going to do it. They're just going to walk away.
This hits close to home, Jeff.
You're in Florida, you have the same thing with the roofing and the hurricanes, and I get that. This is preventable. Hurricanes are not preventable.
Yeah. I was going to describe the conundrum with insurance here now, though. So we had roofing contractors in particular ripped off insurance companies in the state of Florida for many years. And I think I've told this before on SDN, so I won't go into great details. But what would happen is storm comes through, they knock at your door. Would you like me to inspect your roof? No, it's okay. We're not having any problems. Well, are you sure? Because we're already replacing a couple dozen roofs in your neighborhood, and you're going to be paying for those because your premium's based on your zip code, not your individual policy. So then people would say, well, yeah, I guess I should get a new roof like everybody else. Then what happened is we had a bunch of insurance companies leave. So State Farm, for example, does not do any property insurance in Florida anymore. Which the problem with that is they still do automobile insurance, but you lose the discounts if you bundle everything together that you used to get. But what's even worse than that is the legislation that was passed to protect insurance companies from these shady contractors essentially states that if your roofing system is 10 plus years old, that the insurance company only has to cover 25% of any damage caused by the roofing system failing, right? Yeah. So that won't fly with mortgage underwriters. So typically what happens is they say, you either have to replace your roofing system at 10 years, even if you have 30, 35-year shingles. And if you don't, then you're going to have to buy our insurance coverage and not the insurance coverage of your choice. We don't have a big fancy home like we used to. And we were paying around $1,200 a year insurance. Then all this stuff changed and it went to $2,800. And then our insurance company dropped us, not because we'd had any claims or anything, just because it's a disaster here in Florida. So our mortgage underwriter cranked it up to $5,600 a year in insurance. Cindy has spent a ton of time trying to get alternate coverage. And to be honest with you, we start a new policy next month and we're pretty happy to only be paying $2,800, which is, atrocious. But so I can kind of relate to the homeowners conundrum in California, like having your coverage dropped and then whether it's a fire or hurricane wiping out your home, that's a really crappy position to put those people in.
But an insurance company is banking. They're betting that they can collect more money in premiums than they're going to have to pay out in claims. So that's how they pay their employees and they make a profit and reward their shareholders and everything else. But if with the roofing scam you described, well, if I'm an insurance company and say, okay, I'm getting ripped off, state's not going to help me on this because I'm paying the claims and I'm losing money. So the only way is either get out of the business or raise rates. And a lot of times they do a combination of both. And every action has a reaction. And I hate to say it, with most government programs, they usually give you the opposite of the intended result.
Right. Like the Inflation Reduction Act.
Exactly. So it's a mixed bag, and these people say, "Oh, I got this new program, and I get all this money for free." No, nothing is for free. guarantee you it's coming out of somebody's pocket. And, you know, just like your roofing thing. Okay, your roof's only it's 10 years old. You need to replace it. Well, here I have, you know, we all have a lot of clay or concrete tile roofs, which means short of an airplane crashing on your house, nothing's going to destroy them. But, you know, if I was in Florida, it'd be the same thing. You got to replace your roof. Okay, my roof is literally concrete.
Yep.
Why do I need to replace that? It should last. Maybe the underroofing that happens here. They pull all the tiles off, put a new underroofing on, and put the tiles back on. But it's like, why should I have to do that if there's nothing wrong with my roof? But if I was in Florida, I would.
Yeah, 100%. Although Texas Ted makes a good comment here, and I agree with it in principle, and I'll comment on it in a second, but it's a rigged system against the people of the United States. They weaponized the insurance system just like they did the healthcare system and the police. I'm not sure that I agree on the police, but insurance-wise, I do. I've said for years, insurance is essentially the only industry that never loses money, because whatever they pay out this year, they tack it on to everybody's premiums next year, plus their regular margin. So they might have a short-term pain, but they always typically win in the end. And really good example of this is that when the Twin Towers went down, most people don't realize at that time, General Electric was one of the largest underwriters in the world for insurance. And they held over 60% of the coverages on the Twin Towers. And if you go back, if you've kept your records and you have a look at your automobile insurance and your car insurance, or pardon me, home insurance, I should say, from 2002, they took all that pain of the billions that they had to pay out on the Twin Towers and tacked it on to everybody else in the country. They got their money back. So,
yeah, well, there's insurance, and then there's reinsurance, which is insurance for the insurance companies.
Yeah.
Those are the really big, deep pockets guys.
Yeah, actually, Todd Callender specializes in some of that.
Yeah.
And I'm not an expert in it, but there's one aspect of it that's called like a captive insurance policy, where the insurance company owns the insurance policy on themselves, essentially. And if it's structured properly, it provides tremendous financial protection, according to Todd. It's way above my pay grade. But
yeah.
Moving on from there, check out this aerial view here, Jeff. And I'll play a little bit of this video. Of course, it's got to take us to a couple.
Flying right over that thing.
Wow.
When I see that, Jeff, I personally think that it's unconscionable that the government would not do the preventative measures and would allow this to happen.
Yeah, you look at the area that's on fire, and granted, they probably have power cut off to it, you know, so, but it's dark. So there's a lot of those parts that they're still inside Los Angeles, the area. There are still areas that are pretty wild. I mean, maybe the terrain is too rough for houses, or there's very few, the very light density of homes. But it's right there, for crying out loud. You should be able to go through, okay, let's clear this out. Once a year, we send crews in, you clear out the underbrush. If you want to set a backfire or something like that, you do it in the wet season so it can't get out of hand. And you do it in little pieces. You just need a maintenance program. This is the equivalent of driving a car and never changing the oil.
Right. This is an interesting comment from this guy as well. Los Angeles fire hydrants are out of water because the county refused to refill reservoirs, per Rick Caruso. I'm not sure who Rick Caruso is.
He was the guy that ran for mayor and lost to the current mayor.
Okay. You can't fight fire without water. The mayor did zero prep, which is also the stuff you just mentioned. Despite the advanced warning of winds and fire risk, this is exactly what happened on Maui. And this person comments, and I think we touched on this already. The mayor of Los Angeles currently in Africa attending the inauguration of Ghana's president. There's no water in the Palisades to fight fires. There's just countless video after video after video showing this stuff out of control. And again, if you wanted check all this stuff out, watch all the videos. Just go to patreon.com/survivaldispatch, sign up for free, grab a free membership. I don't recall what was in this video. It's been hours since I watched it, but we'll play a bit of it. Oh, wow. So there's some transformers. Wow. That's crazy.
And why a modern city like Los Angeles doesn't have underground utilities is amazing.
Defense 2, go ahead. I could use some more resources up here at Pinecrest. I need because I do have trying to break into homes up here. 14. Copy that. Can you go ahead and give me a rundown of your resources?
That's just crazy. So, by the way, Jeff, I have a theory on why you see a lot of electrical grid infrastructure above ground. And it may not be the case in all jurisdictions, but many it is, that the unions for the power lines fought for years to keep it above ground so that there'd always be work for their union members. And
true, but it's also expensive to bury power lines.
Correct. Yeah. But I mean, you've got here in Florida where there's, virtually no bedrock. There's limestone, I suppose, in some places, but the ground's so soft here, it would be really easy to bury.
They're not that deep.
Yeah.
But if you look at any modern development, subdivision, everything's underground. Because it's easy to do when you're starting fresh. It's harder to do after the fact.
Yeah, it's interesting you mention that, because other than our electric here, everything's underground. I mean, we have fiber optic internet. It's buried. Everything's buried except for the power lines, essentially, like
in
cable.
my neighborhood, everything is underground. And this is not a new neighborhood. This is not part of some fancy development. There's nothing above ground.
So a couple nights ago, Jeff, John and I, we were on early having a conversation, and he says to me, he says, we never have power outages because all of our electric is underground, right? And then the power went out for the entire night. So it happened, beyond his neighborhood, probably back at a substation. But it was ironic that I told him, I said, you put the hex on yourself. You should have never said that. So anyway, moving on a little bit. So here's an article on the Gateway Pundit. Multiple homes are burning as Los Angeles firefighters are having issues with water pressure. Wildfire rage is out of control. And this is essentially 5 very large fires all together. This links to a bunch of stuff on X and Twitter, which...
Yeah, I heard someone from the LA Fire Department said, we are equipped to handle 2 wildfires at the same time. We are not equipped to handle 5.
Interesting. Yeah, so I think Libs of TikTok, I think she put the point on this. This is incompetence at the highest level. And I would say, based on none of the preventative measures being done, managing the forest floor, not having the water reservoirs filled up. I mean, cutting $20 million from the fire department's budget and then sending your fire trucks to Ukraine.
Well, and then firing the firemen who refuse to get a COVID shot.
Right.
I mean, they have no manpower.
So this was posted today, but it refers to Trump when he was in California a few years back while he was in office. And it's a 4-minute video. I'm not going to play the whole video, but we'll play part of it.
And you've seen what happened. You've talked about the forest fires. Now we're permitting and cleaning up these forests so it will reduce the threat of forest fire as well as creating jobs in these communities.
We're all to do that in California, by the way.
Yes, sir.
California's a mess. We're giving billions and billions of dollars for forest fires in California. There's no reason for those fires to be like they are. They're leaving them dirty. It's a disgraceful thing. Old trees are sitting there rotting and dry. And instead of cleaning it up, they don't touch them. They leave them. And we end up with these massive fires that we're paying hundreds of billions of dollars to fix. And the destruction is incredible. So I think California ought to get their act together and clean up their forests and manage their forests, because it's disgraceful. What's happening should never happen. I go all over the country and I meet with governors. The first thing they say is there's no reason for forest fires like that in California. So I say to the governor, or whoever's going to be the governor of California, you better get your act together, because California, we're just not going to continue to pay the kind of money that we're paying because of fires that should never be to the extent.
So, Jeff, I don't know if you recall when Trump was in California while he was in office with the fires, and Newsom was particularly friendly with Trump, and Trump sent federal assistance in the form of dollars and whatnot. Now, Newsom held a press conference. He actually held a few press conferences today, and one of them, he said that Californians should brace for no help from FEMA or the feds because he's pissed Donald Trump off by going against Donald Trump. And you know what? I don't think there's any love lost between Trump and Newsom, but last time around, Trump provided help. Why wouldn't he do it this time? You know what I mean?
And that's dog whistle, political dog whistle bullshit. The government will help out California, but there is a point where you got to say, we're going to quit throwing good money after bad. And you need to put any future assistance to California wildfires, make it contingent upon California doing just the minimum to prevent the damn wildfires in the first place. I mean, I talked to you before the show. I mean, I'm in an area that is considered wildfire potential. And I'm in the desert, it's dry all the time. It's 115 degrees in the summertime, 10% humidity. If the wind comes up and you get a fire, you're pretty well, you're in big trouble. But people around here, we clear out all the brush on our land. We keep a 20, 30, 40-foot barrier between our homes and anything flammable. The distance between is not grass, it's gravel. So you have this barrier around your home. We have concrete tile roofs. We have stucco houses. There's very little on our houses that's exposed and flammable. And we do that on purpose because, shit happens. So you got to be prepared for that. But if the government of California is not going to do the minimum, why should the rest of the country pay? Because they're lazy. And that's what it boils down to. People in Kansas and Alabama and Wisconsin are paying billions of dollars in tax money to go to California because California is too damn lazy to take care of their own forests.
Yeah, there's a third option, by the way, for being proactive with regards to this that we use here in Florida. If we end up with an unusual spell of no rain and the risk of fire is high, which is really not that uncommon here in Florida. I mean, we can't even use dragon's breath shotgun shells or any type of ammunition that has tracers on it because for many months of the year, it's a serious risk. But what we do here in Florida is if there's a high risk and it's anywhere near a densely populated area, we have areas where they do a controlled burn. So if a fire was to start and it gets to where the controlled burn is, it can't jump from there to the populated area. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it works. I mean, we've seen it pretty close to home here over the years, and it absolutely works. So here's a post from our good friend Tom Holman. California is a failed state because of a poor leader. Governor Gavin Newsom activated the National Guard in 2022 to run COVID testing, yet they still haven't been activated to help tens of thousands of citizens and illegal aliens in California evacuate the raging wildfire heading their way. You say all hands are on deck to fight the Palisades fire in Southern California, but again, you've lied. Los Angeles needs your help. Go help California. Get off social media. Stop with the photo ops. Be the leader they voted for once. And this is only a 12-second video, so we'll play this. Just look at the smoke. I mean, this is insane in a commercial downtown area. So I'm assuming that's either a hospital or assisted living facility. Oh, and speak of the devil, here he is. Let's hear what Governor Newsom has to say. He's got all hands on deck, right?
Here at the Palisades Fire, you can see behind me how quickly this is growing. Hundreds and hundreds of personnel all throughout the state of California are here. Coming from Northern California, we pre-positioned 110 engines. We've got fixed-wing aircraft, helicopters, dozers, water tenders, specialty personnel, putting everything we can to not only suppress this fire, but to prevent additional fires over the course of the next few days. Unprecedented winds for this time of year. And of course, this time of year traditionally has not been fire season, but now we disabuse any notion that there is a season. It's year-round in the state of California. Go to ready.ca.gov, ready.ca.gov to learn more about how you can prepare and how you can be vigilant.
Maybe he should take his own advice and be diligent, prepared. I mean, I'm not laughing because of the damage that's being done. I'm just laughing that they keep reelecting Newsom, and he puts California last.
The Santa Ana winds only started this year. They've never existed before.
Right. Short video here, 1 minute long. Not sure I'll play the whole video, but just to give our audience a little bit more perspective. I just left the hellscape formerly known as Pacific Palisades, where I've lived for 26 years. I'm mad at what I saw. Our politicians have failed us, unprepared, unimaginative, understaffed, now overwhelmed. Heads must roll for this disaster. I personally saw 100 plus homes, and I'm assuming that means carries on to say fully engulfed.
Wow. That used to be a house.
That's crazy, Jeff, but check out this next video here. This was Los Angeles skyline just a few hours ago. So this was actually earlier this morning.
Looks like 1972.
It's crazy.
Never, ever seen anything like this. Nobody ever.
I mean, it's almost incomprehensible if you're not there. This is the post I mentioned to you earlier, Jeff, with regards to James Wood. And what did you say? Some liberal said what about him and his family?
Yeah, there was some liberal professor at Mizzou who, just said, yeah, it's karma that his house burned down. And it's like, well, is it karma for all the liberals whose houses have burned down too? I mean, Southern California, for Christ's sake.
Yeah, 13-second video.
You're looking good. Your house is not on fire, but it's. I'm here in case some embers land on it. I hope all your windows are closed.
Man, that's just crazy. So they ended up evacuating, by the way. Not a big surprise. Here's a post. This fire is not from climate change, you ignorant asshole. It's because liberal idiots like you elect liberal idiots like Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass. One doesn't understand the first thing about fire management. The other can't fill the water reservoirs. So maybe this was this the person that's Lucifer here?
No, it was some woman professor from Mizzou.
Fair enough. The irony of James Wood, known for his skepticism about climate change, losing his home to the very wildfires linked to climate change impacts in California is striking. Well, again, I disagree, but I mean, we could go down that rabbit hole for a very long time when it comes to the climate change hysteria. But quick message here from one of our sponsors, Sawyer Products. Be right back.
The Sawyer Mini is the most versatile personal filtration system available. It's a perfect solution for backpacking, hiking, hunting, fishing, scouting, international travel, and emergency preparedness. At a mere 2 ounces, the Mini fits in the palm of your hand and can filter up to 100,000 gallons of water from any freshwater lake, river, or stream. The Sawyer Mini has a 0.1 micron absolute pore size. It was tested to 10 million parts of bacteria and 1 million parts of protozoa without a single breakthrough. This is the highest level filters can be tested to, so we're confident these are the highest rates of filtration available.
All right, so we're going to move into chapter 2. We've got a dozen or so news headlines beyond just the fires in California. First one, the Supreme Court must intervene. Breaking news. President-elect Donald Trump asks Supreme Court to block sentencing in his hush money case in New York. Do you want to field this one, Jeff?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mixed bag. He can't appeal until he's sentenced, which completes the trial. But at the same time, nobody wants him sentenced because it was BS to begin with. So the Democrats are doing, because they want to be able to say when he's inaugurated, oh, he's a convicted felon being inaugurated as president of the United States, first time in our history. What they will ignore is when the whole thing is thrown out for about 150 different reasons, down the road, that he was still a convicted felon. Yeah, it's horse shit. But he can't appeal it formally until he's been sentenced. So potato. They delay it, or unless the judge throws it out altogether, they're gonna sentence him, and then he won't get any jail time. He'll appeal. He'll win on appeal. They'll expunge it, but the damage is done at that point. Yeah, I mean, Merchon is way out of line here. You've got faulty instructions to the jury saying, only 4 of you have to find him guilty on one count, and 4 on another count, and 4 on another count, all added up. There's 12. We'll consider that a conviction. That is not founded in any part of our law whatsoever. You have a conflict of interest. His daughter, I believe, was paid $9 million by Democratic. Yeah. Well, they took a misdemeanor, elevated it to a felony, went beyond the statute of limitation. I mean, it's wrong on about 50 different levels. Yeah, and what's even more wrong is that, this judge is an asshole. Yeah, he said very recently that he has a right to sentence Donald Trump, just basically trying to dress him down, sort of thing. He's an activist judge. There is some question as to whether or not he's even a naturalized citizen. And he may be just on a permanent resident status, a green card. I don't know, but he's way out of his league on this, and obviously he's being paid a lot of money, by the other team to try and paint Donald Trump in a bad light. But we'll move on from there. So this was from Andy No, and he lives in Great Britain now. So breaking: with violence and Islamic terrorism being part and parcel of London life today, people are easily spooked. In the Mayfair area, people ran after hearing yelling. The videographer says there was a controlled explosion after the video ends. So basically, at this particular point in time, nothing had happened. But when people heard other people screaming, this is the type of chaos that ensued.
What's going on?
So we don't have to go too deep into it, other than to say this is a direct reaction to, England and London in particular being invaded by foreigners, Muslims from Pakistan in particular, who've been terrorizing their daughters and wives, and it's crazy to see this happen. Moving on to the next one. Speaking of Great Britain, so this guy here, I believe it's him. If it's not, it's his guest in this video. Goes on and how violence is perpetrated by white men, and that it's the white rapists, when in reality it's all these Pakistani Muslim gangs that have raped hundreds of thousands of young girls and women over the past 20 years. And we're not the biggest proponents of Elon Musk on SDM, but he's got a valid point here. Read the court transcripts. I did. What was done to thousands of defenseless little girls in Britain was vile beyond belief. When the fathers of the little girls tried to save them, the authorities arrested their fathers, and they actually continue to do that. 4-minute video. Not going to play the whole video, but we'll play part of it.
To deal with it and to delegate that responsibility to Yvette Cooper, who's Home Secretary, to deal with it, and they are actioning that, and they are actioning the recommendations.
Well, they're not giving us a national inquiry, are they?
They don't need to, because inquiries have already happened, and as they've said repeatedly, inquiries have happened. The results and the recommendations.
Do you know why they're not giving a national inquiry? Because they're more concerned. I'll say this because nobody else is going to say it. They're more concerned about the Labour Party's support among Muslim communities than they are about the girls who are abused, trafficked, and abused. That's why they won't commit to a national
that's
inquiry.
quite a claim for which you have no evidence at all.
No, well, it's pretty obvious. Jess Phillips, among others, almost lost their seat because of Muslim voters rebelling against
Jess
the Labour
Phillips
Party.
has given her,
So that's what Elon's specifically referring to, is this guy here is saying none of this ever happened. It's all a far right-wing conspiracy when it's not. So he's complicit in the cover-up. Is there anything you want to add to that, Jeff?
No, Britain has reaped what it has sown. You do, uninhibited, unchecked immigration from the third world, you become the third world.
Yeah, it's not complicated, really, is it?
No.
Moving on to the next one. So Curtis here is the founder of the Guardian Angels. You have daughters who are like her at Curtis Sliwa on how the pictures and videos of Deborah Kawam being burned to death by a migrant in the New York subway will live in infamy. So 1 minute video, we'll play the whole video.
She was a Jersey girl. Like so many of you listening, you have daughters who are like her, grandchildren who are like her. You may have been like her growing up. Who is Debrina, better known originally as Debbie Kawam? We don't hear anything more about it. It's almost like it's out of sight, out of mind. Because she was homeless, we don't want to know the details, and emotionally disturbed. We don't want to know the details. Let's be honest. We know it was a horrific crime. It will live in infamy. It is emblazoned in our mindset. We can never forget that. And she grabbed the railing and was a human torch, and nobody helped her. Nobody on the platform, none of the cops. In fact, nobody on the platform even pointed to the monster who had just been fanning the flames, making the flames worse, who sat like a pyromaniac and watched his dastardly deed in front. Everybody took the coat of omerta, and all they wanted to do was film it.
So timing wise, it's part of this was just after Daniel Penny was declared innocent, but had his life turned upside down because he protected a bunch of subway riders from a mentally ill criminal who had a rap sheet a mile long, 42 convictions of assault alone. You've traveled a lot, Jeff. There's two camps here. There's one camp that's saying this is nothing new. This has been going on for years. And then there's another camp that is quoting numbers, which I'm not sure where they get them from, maybe from the police, saying that there's been this huge increase in subway violence in New York. What's your impression or opinion of that?
Well, I think there has been a huge increase in subway violence just because there are no consequences to action. As a culture, we have, to a certain extent, lost our humanity. When you can see a woman burning to death and just keep walking, what does that say about you as a human being? And I think the people of New York are shell-shocked. They're afraid if they intervene, if they even thought to intervene, I'll be arrested. Not the perpetrator, not the murderer, not the violent criminal. The average American who tries to stand up for himself and others, or herself and others, and protect innocent people, they're the ones that go to jail. What the hell is wrong with our system? How upside down is it that heroes are prosecuted and criminals are coddled? And that's exactly what we have.
Yeah, upside down. California, Washington, Oregon, Cook County, Chicago, New York City. Not so much here in Florida or even, Georgia, other than the Atlanta metro area. And just because we have a home in Georgia and Florida, that's why I would reference them. There was some discussion, Jeff, with regards to the victim here standing up while she was burning, and people saying that they suspected that it was a fraud. That would never happen. The person would be writhing in pain. I spoke to a buddy of mine who was a paramedic for years, and he said she was long dead before then. Basically, when you're set on fire like that, what he said was that your lungs cease functioning pretty quickly and that you die from that. And while that's happening, when you're engulfed in flames like she was, that it melts the tendons to the bones and you end up with whatever position the person was in almost gets frozen in time until if you let them burn to the ground, I guess. But I don't think this was fake.
No, not at all. I mean, if you look at old, videos from World War II of soldiers who were in a tank that caught on fire, they're sitting on the ground. They're still in that position because their bodies have fused in that position. Those weren't faked either. Those are still dead guys in that position because that's the position they died in.
If memory serves me right, there are actually some photographs from Hiroshima and Nagasaki where people were frozen in whatever pose they were in when they died.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next one. This is a post from our friend Craig Sawyer. Sawyer. He was a SEAL for many years. He runs a nonprofit called vetsforchildrescue.org. So who runs this scumbag page smearing those of us who arrest pedophiles? I have zero tolerance for this brand of idiocy. If she's a Soros-paid leftist, Satanist, or pedophile, I'd expect such an attack. But that profile pretends to be a patriot. What's really going on there? We've extensively shared our work and successful results against all big tech's hostile censorship. I would add big media as well, because there's been a channel in Nashville and one particular reporter who's got into a pissing contest with Craig, saying that there's no such thing as child sex trafficking. It's another right-wing conspiracy theory. The reason I brought this up is because we know a number of people are on the front lines of fighting against this. And for people to not only deny that it's happening, but to go on the attack against people who are saving these children, I don't know how to explain it, Jeff, other than they're either idiots, evil, or a combination of both.
Both.
Yeah, highly likely. Okay, so let's move into some better news. Idaho bans DEI ideology in higher education, protects campus speech and debate. So we're seeing some activity from flyover states in particular of making moves against DEI and making moves against our education system, indoctrinating our kids and telling them that George Washington was a terrorist and our country is founded on, racism and slave ownership and all those things. This just caught my eye because somebody's actually taking a stand against DEI. I don't know if you want to comment on it or not.
Well, we need more people to do the same, because DEI, although it's supposed to be against discrimination, is discrimination. It's the worst kind of discrimination.
Sanctioned discrimination.
Yeah, and it's discrimination against merit.
Yes.
Do you really want a doctor who did not earn his way into medical school? I don't.
Well, I would say at this particular point in time, do you want a chief of your fire department who's been appointed because
who she sleeps with?
Well, I mean, she's gay, she's a woman. It has nothing to do with whether she has merit or not, like you said. It's just baloney. But anyway, we'll move on from there. Breaking. Republicans led by Senator Ted Cruz have introduced a joint resolution proposing a constitutional amendment to impose term limits for members of Congress. Well, you know what? That would be really nice, but the chances of getting a constitutional amendment pushed through in this day and age are slim to none. I mean, do you want to address that, Jeff?
Well, you got to start somewhere. I mean, people can do term limits by just not voting for the guys and girls, women who are these old fossils. And I'm a little torn on that, because you've got some like Joe Biden and others who are obviously mentally incapable of doing the job. Then you got people like Chuck Grassley from Iowa, who's in his 80s but as sharp as a tack and goes out and runs 5Ks. And it's one of those. Okay, this person's feeble at 60, and I've got all my wits about me at 80, but he can run for office and I can't. The more the term limit more than an age limit, I think makes more sense. Okay, you've had your 12 years in the Senate. Bye-bye. We do it to the president.
Yes.
Most states do it to their governors. Why the hell not? Let somebody else get in there, and you get the people like the Nancy Pelosi's and the Chuck Schumers and the Mitch McConnells of the world, get them the hell out of there, because they're not in it for us, they're in it for them.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, my comment on this, though, was that the barrier to getting a constitutional amendment is beyond what you're going to find as far as cooperation from states, feds, two different parties. Like, to get 2/3 of the country to officially sign off, which is essentially the barrier.
You never know, because what you do is when you're doing it in California, you say, you don't want any more Mitch McConnells, do you? And they go, hell no. And then you go down south and you say, you don't want any more Nancy Pelosi's, do you? Hell no.
Yeah.
You know, it's all in marketing.
You know, and honestly, I would bet every penny I've got that many elections in California have been rigged. I do not believe for a minute, for example, that Californians voted for Dianne Feinstein for over 50 years when she didn't hold a single campaign event. I mean, her limo driver was a Chinese spy, CCP.
Yep.
I don't believe the majority of people vote for people like her. And, you know, there's this illusion, like you said, California used to be Republican. Ronald Reagan had no problems carrying it as the governor and the president.
Yep.
And I don't think that California is 100% liberals like they try to portray themselves as being. I think there's a lot of shenanigans in their elections that's gone on over the years. But let's move on to the next one. And this escalated pretty quickly, in my opinion. Breaking news: President Trump just announced that he will place massive tariffs on Denmark if they don't immediately relinquish all control of Greenland. We need Greenland for national security purposes. And it's a 58-second video. We'll play the whole thing.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. I'm talking about protecting the free world. You look at, you don't even need binoculars. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting it happen. And if Denmark wants to get to a conclusion, but nobody knows if they even have any right, title, or interest. The people are going to probably vote for independence or to come into the United States. But if they did do that, then I would tariff Denmark at a very high level.
Thoughts on Trump's plans to essentially annex Greenland?
Well, it's going to be ultimately up to the people of Greenland, but from what it sounds like, they're not big fans of the Danish government anyway. So they'd probably be thrilled to join us as a territory, because they would probably get a hell of a lot of economic advantage from that.
Trump Jr. and Charlie Kirk flew into Greenland yesterday, and we played one of the videos last night. John and I did, and they got a very, very warm welcome. So I suppose nothing's beyond the realm of possibility. And if nothing else, I'll give Trump credit for, trying to expand the American empire in this day and age. We haven't seen anybody short of Putin try to do that by reclaiming sections of the Ukraine.
Yeah.
So actually, John and I just had a discussion on this too, Jeff, and I'm dying to hear what your opinion is what on earth happened to Fetterman after he had his stroke? Before he had his stroke, he was completely discombobulated, hardcore liberal. He has a stroke and he comes out completely based.
Well, all I can think is the liberal part of his brain died and the logical part of his brain survived.
It must have. 53-second video.
Like, it's really common sense. And I'd like to remind everybody that we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of migrants here illegally that have convicted of crimes. And why, I don't know why, who wants to defend that, to allow them to remain in our nation? That. And now if you're here illegally and you're committing crimes and those things, I don't know why anybody thinks that it's controversial that they all need to go.
Do you think that this was one of, if not the biggest issue for this election?
Well, I think if we can't, there's 47 of us in the Senate, and if we can't pull up with 7 votes, if we can't get at least 7 out of 47, and if we can't, then that's the reason why we lost. That's one of them. That's one of why we lost, in part.
So essentially, he's
launching.
Yeah. He's been throwing his support behind Republican initiatives. And for those of you who are just tuning into our podcast, Republicans, Democrats, 2 different sides of the same coin, so we're not big proponents of either one of them. We're proponents of people who follow the Constitution. Anyway, it's been an interesting transformation for him, if nothing else. So next one here, I didn't expect to happen. So Sebastian Gorka, who has been appointed Trump's new director of counterterrorism, has come out hard against Sean Ryan and our friend Sam Shoemate with regards to the so-called manifesto from Livelsberger, the guy who supposedly blew himself up in the Tesla Cybertruck in front of Trump Hotel. And Sean Ryan has struck back at him here, so basically Gorka is siding with the Vindman brothers, of all people, that Sean Ryan or his producers or Sam Shoemate, one of them, created this whole thing. But here's the FBI's opinion on the email with the manifesto.
I've gotten into the weeds on any of that. That podcast email. Yeah, so we have confirmed the document he sent to the podcast. We know that he was the one that sent that document. That's correct.
So interesting that the FBI would say 100% that Livelsberger sent that email to Sean Ryan and Sam Shoemate. Even more interesting to me, though, is that Sebastian Gorka would take the other side. I didn't see that coming. I didn't expect that. I can tell you I've met Sebastian Gorka. I've, shook his hand. He's crazy tall, by the way. But before I had a short conversation with him, he was having a conversation with somebody else from a gun company. And I will leave it at this and say that he was pretty arrogant with that particular person. So
everyone can make mistakes.
Not that my opinion means anything in that regard, but I'm just telling you what my personal experience was. So that's it for chapter 2. We're moving right along tonight, Jeff. We're into chapter 3 already. And the first one that we have up here, pardon me, no longer a conspiracy theory. Former FBI Deputy Director David Bowditch says Barack Obama's DOJ forced the deletion of 500,000 fugitives, many pedophiles, from the National Instant Criminal Background Check System, NICS. For years, fact checkers have wrote articles debunking this.
It's my understanding that under federal law, fugitives cannot legally possess guns. We've heard from local law enforcement that the Justice Department has issued a memo that forced the FBI NICS background check database to drop more than 500,000 names of fugitives with outstanding arrest warrants because it was uncertain whether those fugitives had fled across state lines. Mr. Bowditch, can you describe why this determination was made by the Justice Department?
Yes, ma'am. That was a decision that was made under the previous administration. It was the Department of Justice's Office of Legal Counsel that reviewed the law and believed that it needed to be interpreted so that if someone was a fugitive in a state, there had to be indications that they had crossed state lines. Otherwise, they were not known to be a fugitive under the law and the way it was interpreted.
So
if I'm a fugitive from justice, as long as I don't go to New Mexico, I'm good. As long as I stay in Arizona, I'm good. I can kill somebody and not be arrested. As long as I don't go to New Mexico, I'm not on a list.
Correct.
Oh, holy crap. Do these people even listen to what they're saying?
No, and that's why we put this into chapter 3, which is zany stories and headlines and funny stories and memes. But that was direct sabotage against our country by Obama. There's no other way that you can square that at all. So moving on to the next one. Your ancestors went to war to stop Islam from invading Europe. Are you going to hand it over because you're afraid of being labeled Islamophobic?
I think it's time to understand that the Crusades in principle were a good thing. Islamic armies, starting with their prophet Muhammad, had already conquered and subjugated 2/3 of the Christian world, including the Holy Land, Egypt, North Africa, and Spain, and was now poised to overwhelm the Byzantine Empire and the rest of Europe. So Christian nations, seeing these expansionist intentions of the Muslim world, recognized that this wasn't going to stop. The First Crusade was a defensive war. Muslim Turks and Ottomans continued to attack Europe all the way up until the 20th century. And it's notable and not well known that during that time, over 1 million Europeans were abducted and taken back to North Africa and to the Ottoman Empire as...
Comments on the Crusades, Jeff?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, the liberals and Muslims in particular, they describe the Crusades as evil Christians from Europe slaughtering innocent Muslims. Well, they went in to recapture the Holy Lands. Those weren't Muslim to begin with. Those were Christian. The Muslims took over Spain. They got kicked out by Ferdinand and Isabella, finally finished that up in 1492. But they were only defeated at the gates of Vienna, Austria. I mean, they came that close to just rolling into the heart of Europe. They were the aggressors. They were the ones who invaded other countries. There was no Muslim history in Europe, and the Muslim armies invaded Europe. Europe finally got its shit together and decided to push back and retook the Holy Lands for a while. But they were divisive because they weren't unified. They were all these little different countries providing their own troops. But yeah, it was totally 100% in response to Muslim aggression. 100%.
Yeah, and I think that's lost on a lot of people. Where
we don't teach in schools. We don't teach history. Correct.
All right, moving on to the next one. This is downright criminal. Yesterday was a big day for my beautiful daughter, male to female. She got her hormone blocker. We are all super stoked.
Parents should be in jail.
This is just beyond abhorrent.
Child abuse.
It's child abuse. This kid is going to be messed up in the head for his entire life. Will probably attempt to take his own life at some particular point in time.
Yes.
I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. My feeling is that we need meaningful legislation that essentially, if you tell a youngin that they're the other sex and you counsel them to take these hormone blockers and cut body parts off, you should go to jail. And if you're the surgeon who actually cuts the body parts off, you should go to prison the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
And here's the crazy thing is that this is 100% an aspect of the irregular warfare, asymmetrical warfare that China and our foes have been waging against us. They've known for years they can't land on our shores and conquer America. So they've got to find a way to divide and conquer us. And all of this politically correct transgender stuff going backwards is all offensive moves on their part. They've manufactured this, and unfortunately the weak-minded amongst us have bought into their bullshit. Now, speaking of weak minds, this is pretty crazy. So crocodile, alligator, doesn't matter, either one. Their brain is the size of a walnut. Okay.
Yeah.
And clearly we've got lots of gators here in Florida. We do have crocodiles, man-eating crocodiles, saltwater crocs in South Florida that came across on some shipping containers years ago. But check this out. Crocodiles in Indonesia have learned to pretend to drown in order to lure humans into the water to eat them.
These saltwater crocodiles in Indonesia have apparently learned how to pretend to be drowning to lure humans in who they view as prey, who they then obviously eat.
How crazy is that, Jeff?
Darwin, if you're dumb enough to fall for a crocodile's trick, you deserve to get eaten.
Yeah, I reckon so. So moving on. So this will take us back to Sam Shoemate and Sean Ryan. So this guy here is one of the Vindmans. went on at great length how Sean Ryan and Sam Shoemate fabricated the email from Livelsberger. Nothing could be further from the truth. And he kept saying, this is in edit mode. There's, spell check, squiggly lines, and therefore, and that's what he led with every single time. And that's how we know that they fabricated this. They're stupid, blah, blah, blah. And in reality, they were redacting some information that they didn't want to get out because it was important. It's probably still important that they kept certain people's names out of the press. Now, in hindsight, which is 2020, what I would have done is shot a video and then obfuscated the stuff that was there, and then I would have edited a second time so it flattened all the layers and it wasn't something could be easily spied on, but whatever. But this guy was so, rah, I'm right, they're wrong, this is bullshit, and it blew up in his face, rightfully so. DC Dranos, he's an attorney here in Tampa. Crazy that Rudy Giuliani was ordered to pay $140 million for saying a rigged election was rigged, but not a single Democrat or journalist had to pay anything for saying Trump colluded with Russia for 3+ years. I mean,
true.
We had Rudy Giuliani on close to a year ago. Todd and I did a joint podcast with him, and say whatever you want about Rudy Giuliani, think whatever you want. This $140 million judgment because he called into question a couple people who were running an election in one particular precinct, I should say, is just vindictive, number one. And number two, we had quite a chat with him offline as well. And he's a decent guy. I don't think he deserves any of the vitriol that's been tossed his way. Each to their own. All right. Next one here. So I'm not sure why somebody resurrected this a few days ago on January the 5th. This happened maybe 6 months ago. It's not breaking news, but at the time it was breaking. London's police chief, actually it's UK Metro, threatens the arrest of Americans over online posts, says, we'll come after you. What's your message to London police? Elon Musk says, you have finger guns, we have real guns. So
yeah,
pretty good take on it, all things considered. Check this out. Governor Newsom orders all trees to wear masks to prevent spread of wildfires. Oh my
Don't give
God.
any ideas.
Right. And here we go. This would be, back in England. Why don't you mind your own business? Because no one else is speaking up. And, he's kind of ripped the cover off of this rape gangs from Pakistan that's been happening. Again, the numbers, they started at 250,000, saying 250,000 young girls have been raped by these Muslim invaders. On a daily basis, you can go and find videos on people from Pakistan, very different culture, who get caught by British sting operations where they're trying to, meet up with 10, 12-year-old girls sort of thing. Hopefully, Tommy Robinson doesn't have to serve the full sentence, which is total bullshit because he did a handful of documentaries called The Rape of Britain. But this is egregious, man. Every time I see news on this and I hear somebody in Great Britain defend the actions of Keir Starmer and the Labour Party, it's a good reminder that evil is everywhere. Check this out. Governor Newsom, forest management on the right, gay shit and illegals. Oh boy, that's a good one. All right. Mark Zuckerberg wouldn't be removing fact checking if Kamala Harris had won. So I don't know if you caught this or not yet, Jeff.
Yeah.
Facebook employed 46,000 fact checkers that, anytime somebody mentioned anything with regards to COVID or anything anti narrative, they nuked their accounts or shadow banned them and took them down. And of course, Zuckerberg was at Mar-a-Lago a couple weeks ago taking a knee to Trump. But whoever did this meme is right on the money.
Yeah.
All right, next one up. Asshole of the year, California's dictator Gavin Newsom. I will use the gas tax money as I see fit. Buses, trains, trannies, and the illegal aliens. All right. And the Don Rowe Doctrine, 51st state, instead of Greenland, our land, instead of Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, and the Panama Canal, Panamaga.
Canal, yeah.
He's definitely shaking the bushes to see what he can make fall out. Oh, by the way, and he said he's going to rename Greenland to Orange Land.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, and this is great. So this is after Justine Turdo. We call him Turdo because he's a turd. There isn't a snowball's chance in hell that Canada will become part of the United States. Workers and communities in both our countries benefit from being each other's biggest trading and security partner. Elon Musk replies, "Girl, you're not the governor of Canada anymore, so it doesn't matter what you say." Oh, that's friggin' awesome. And somebody from Australia says, "I don't want to give Trump any more ideas, but these guys don't have guns anymore."
Yeah, no, we just walk in.
Oh my God. Well, and here you go. Canada and Greenland, Donald Trump. That's too freaking funny. And last meme of the night, Canada proud. We need a real prime minister now more than ever. Trump does not sound like he's joking. He's not joking.
No.
So anyway, that's it for chapter 3. So we're going to actually, before we pivot to homework for tonight, we've got a short message here from Flex Industries, the fastest triggers on the market, bar none. This is just a short one. This is a 3MR trigger for ARs. It's like a 7-second video with our good friend Tactical Carl in it. So that is not a forced reset trigger. So it's not encumbered by patent disputes. It's legal in every state that doesn't ban binary triggers or rate increasing devices, as they call them in Florida. They've got an AK trigger that's coming shortly. I've already seen the prototypes, and its performance is just like a forced reset trigger on an AR. They've got a Glock trigger that's 100% legal called the G Flex. And a bunch of us will be at SHOT Show here in a couple of weeks, including some of the guys from Flex Industries. If you happen to be out that way, send us a message. We'd love to meet up with you. We will probably have a bag of triggers to give some away to lucky individuals while we are there. All right, homework-wise, Jeff. So in response to the wildfires in California, what are things that people can do? And we know forest mismanagement's been a big problem, and there are practical steps. This is all in the brief for tonight, the situation report for tonight, sit rep. So if you want like the whole 9 yards, just go download it from our Patreon. But I'm going to touch on half a dozen things quickly, Jeff, and then get your input. Number one, create defensible space. So exactly what you said, clearing the flammable vegetation, dead trees, debris around your home to, create that space. Number two, home hardening, use fire resistant roofing materials, install fine mesh screens on vents to prevent ember intrusion, non-flammable siding if you're doing a retrofit. Number three, support and participate in prescribed burns. So advocate this, and this is what we do in Florida: advocate for and participate in local prescribed burn programs where they are safe and permitted. So a controlled burn, so that it's like a barrier between anything jumping over it. Water management, support initiatives for strategic water management, like creating retention ponds or improving irrigation systems. Number five, community education and preparedness. Educate your neighbors on fire safety, evac routes, emergency preparedness, which is one of the big things we do at Survival Dispatch. Number six, insurance and relocation considerations. Review and possibly upgrade insurance policies to cover fire damage. That is a big, big thing. And there's a couple more in the brief that I'm just going to forego for now, Jeff, and get your advice in general, what you would recommend people, especially in Southern California, where this is a major risk.
Well, yeah, if you're, again, fireproof your own home. The government's not going to do it for you. So you can't help what your neighbor does, but you can do whatever you can on your property. If you have a wood deck or anything like that, if at all possible, don't water it down. Spread dirt or sand on the top, and then maybe wet the dirt or sand. But you want something, if an ember blows on it and lands on it, what's under the ember is not flammable. So you look dirt, dirt, sand, things like that. Make yourself a big barrier between your house and the next flammable thing. You're going to have embers are going to blow onto your house. You got to be prepared to deal with it. If you have a swimming pool, gonga deal, but you need it for water, but you're going to have a pumping system of some sort because you can't count on the electricity staying on. So if you have a generator and a pump, this is the way to do it. You can use your swimming pool as a source of water to keep your house from burning down. But you just got to look around. You look around your house and say, what is flammable? What can cause damage to my home? Especially any dead fuel, get rid of it. Chip it, burn it, or during the wet season, throw it away. Do something, but keep fuel away from your home.
Great advice, and appreciate the comment, Dean. The fire was half a mile away, if not close to our house. When we evacuated, only when we saw hot embers falling in front of our house. I've never been in those types of conditions, and I can't imagine. I mean, we've been through countless hurricanes here, lots of tornadoes too, but nothing like this where you're completely powerless against it. Good comment from our friend Velcro here. Australia, New Zealand, and Japan, 55th through 60th states. I'd be willing to bet money that during the second term of Trump's, America grows geographically in one way or another, because apparently it's stuck in Trump's craw. But anyway, moving on from there, just before we do the actually I call it the grok question of the night. We've run through almost 14 card decks of conflicted questions, conflicted the game. So these are questions related to putting some mental reps towards what you would do in a post-apocalyptic world. But I've been going to Grok and asking Grok for questions, and it's done pretty good. So we'll stick with that for a while. But before that, patreon.com/survival dispatch, free membership. You get 50% of the content for free. Paid membership, $9.99 a month. You get all of the content, which is all of our daily sit reps. You get an invite to our Signal encrypted chat, which is just insane amount of information being shared in there. A lot of camaraderie as well. You get our 228-page essentials guide for free. You get 50% off of all of our insider e-magazines, early access to content. For $9.99, think of it this way. You're getting a daily curated newspaper that will save you a ton of time because we do the legwork and you don't have to do the legwork. And here is the Grok question, Jeff. What are the most essential items you believe everyone should have in their emergency kit? So my context would be in terms of having a get home bag in your vehicle.
Well, you need money so you can buy your way out of a problem if you have to. You need a weapon to defend yourself with. And you probably need, I know it sounds old fashioned, a map, because you don't know where you're going to be when the shit hits the fan. If you're at work, great, you know how to get from work to home. But what if you're across town? What if you're somewhere else completely different and then they start shutting down roads? You need to be able to find alternate ways. But yeah, if you're talking about getting home, yeah, you need something like that, and good shoes, because you may have to hoof it.
Yeah, exactly. So I would go one step further than just good shoes, comfortable shoes, but one or two extra pairs of socks as well.
True.
If your feet get wet and you're hoofing her any distance whatsoever, your feet can go out from under you pretty quickly to the point where you're essentially disabled on the spot. Anybody who's been in a theater of war that's wet will tell you there's nothing better than dry feet and dry pair of socks. But I would include an IFAK, so an individual first aid kit. You can go to nextdistro.org, nextdistro.org, and choose your state. It'll connect you to the department in your state that will send you free Narcan. If you see somebody who's been exposed to fentanyl, you can save them with the Narcan. If you get exposed to it, you can take the Narcan. I would caution you against asking for a prescription pretty much any doctor out there will give you a prescription for Narcan, so you can go to CVS, Walgreens, and they'll give it to you for free. Use nextdistro.org. Do not go through a regular pharmacy like that. I made that mistake several years ago, and I can't get any additional life insurance now because Narcan shows up on my abstract of medications that's been prescribed for me, and the underwriters think I'm a drug addict as a result of it. So Narcan in your get home bag. I love the map suggestion, by the way, Jeff, because you have to anticipate there's, good chance that comms will be down. I would include water and the ability to filter water. So the Sawyer Minis, it's good for 100,000 gallons. They're half the size of everybody else's, but they filter way more. They're made in America, super high quality. They pass every single test we've thrown at them. And I'm with you on the rest of the stuff. You got to have a gun, a way to protect yourself. You should, depending on how far away you are, you may want to have provisions to provide shelter in case you can't walk home all in one spell, like all in the first day. But I mean, we could go on and on. The funny thing is James from Pilgrim Ammo, he's got the exact opposite mentality to me, Jeff. So my thing is that we have everything we could possibly need in our truck, and depending on how far away from home we are, will depend on what we take from the truck and we put into our get home bags and hit the ankle express, right? So James's theory is the exact opposite. So he took this big ass backpack and it literally put everything in it except for the kitchen sink. And his thought process is that if he had to, walk home or something like that, he would take out all the stuff that he didn't need. And I'm not saying his way is wrong and our way is right or anything like that. But when we posted the video on it, as you know, James is a big guy.
Yeah, he's a lot bigger than me.
And he's got this ginormous backpack on. Of course, everybody's like, you're an idiot. There's no way that you could carry that, for 20 miles to get home. He actually could.
Yeah.
To be quite frank, he could. But somewhat of a valid point that, you're not going to typically carry that kind of weight. We didn't weigh his bag, but it had a power station and it was a Bluetti backpack. It had to weigh 80, 90 pounds. I mean, it wasn't small. General rule of thumb is you shouldn't go over 20% of your body weight. And if you can do it 10, 15%, that's even better. But there's no right or wrong way to put your get home bag together.
10% of your body weight, if you had it in a backpack, you wouldn't even feel it.
Exactly.
No big deal.
All right. So that's it for the conflicted question, or the grok question, I should say. We'll mention as well that there's 2 new sections in the daily sit rep. One is for partner discounts and deals. There's about 24 companies in there that we recommend. We have affiliate relationships with over 300 companies, but there's only these 24 that I really want to put our weight behind. So there's discount codes, discount links on all the basic stuff, food, water, power, et cetera, et cetera. And there's a restricted section where the content, we can't put it on, say, YouTube, because YouTube loves to smoke us. We're sitting on 2 strikes as it is right now, waiting for those to expire. But there is a story in today's sit rep, for example, that we couldn't put in because it's regarding COVID. And YouTube is still living in 2021 here, thinking that they need to protect us from any, information that goes against their official narrative. Also, when you watch our live episodes, we like to play some decent videos at the very end to close out. And if you come back and you can't find our video, that's because YouTube smokes our videos for putting in copyrighted material. We had an AC/DC song a couple nights ago and they smoked our video around the world until I edited it and took it out. Tonight we got a video from Dilly Meme Team supporting Pete Hegseth. We had a bunch of seals on last night, and we're definitely big proponents of Pete Hegseth, but that's it. So please like, comment, subscribe. God bless America.
Good night.
Pete Hegseth's journey from a small town in Minnesota to the Pentagon is a testament to his commitment, leadership, and deep-rooted patriotism. After graduating from Princeton and Harvard, Hegseth chose to serve America on the battlefield. As an Army National Guard major, he led troops in Iraq and Afghanistan, earning 2 Bronze Stars and a Combat Infantryman badge. Hegseth's experiences taught him firsthand the value of sacrifice and the importance of military strength. A vocal advocate for America's veterans, he's fought tirelessly to reform systems that leave our heroes behind. As a media figure, he's championed patriotism accountability, and America First values, while exposing how wokeness threatens to weaken our military's mission and readiness. President Trump's choice was clear. Hegseth is a leader who understands both strategy and service. He stands ready to eliminate distractions, bring renewed focus to peace through strength, and ensure America remains the world's most powerful force for good. Pete Hegseth is here to protect and serve, because for him, service to America never stops.